Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatiravanachari Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatiravanachari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Asatara Satyashri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shai Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mathura Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Jamuna Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane, Namaste Saraswati Deve, Gauravani Pacharane, Nirvisesus and Nirvadi Paskachade Satarane, Vandeham Sri Guru, Sri Yuta, Padakamalam, Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha, Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sajivam, Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Vanchakalpachupascha Kripasindhyavatapatitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevi Namo Namaha Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So it is April 20th, 2025, in Hillsborough, North Carolina, and we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 61. We're going to read 26, 27, and 28. So, 26. Tasmin abhyudaye rajan Rukmini Ramakeshaval Purambo Jakatam Jagmu Sambaprajumna Kadaya. Rukmini Ramakeshaval. Tasmin, on the occasion of that, Abhyudaye, happy event, Rajan, O King, Rukmini, Ramakeshaval, Balaram and Krishna, Puram, to the city, Bhojakata, Jagmuhu, went, Samba, Prayunnaka Adaya, Samba, Prajumna, and others. And it's April 21st, not April 20th. BBT translation. On the joyous occasion of that marriage, O King, Queen Rukmini, Lord Balaram, Lord Krishna, and several of the Lord's sons, headed by Samba and Prajumna, went to the city of Bhojakata. So there's no BBT purport, but Srila Jiva Goswami comments, the result of his crooked behavior toward the Lord is now described. On the occasion of the great festival, they went to Bhojakata. Rukmini is mentioned first because she intended to go to her brother's house. Balaram and Samba are mentioned before Krishna and Prajumna because they stayed at relatives' houses. Rukmini made arrangements for Krishna, Prajumna, and others at individual houses separate from his own house. So that's interesting because Prajumna here is the father and Krishna is the grandfather. So he's arranging for his sister to stay at his house, but his sister's husband and his sister's son to stay someplace else. 27 to 28, BBT translation. After the wedding, a group of arrogant kings, headed by the king of Kalinga, told Rukmini, you should defeat Balaram at dice. He's not expert at dice, O king, but still he's quite addicted to it. Thus advised, Rukmini challenged Balaram and began a gambling match with him. So there's no BBT purport here. We'll go to Srila Jiva Goswami's commentary. He says the Harivamsa describes this. Kings who were relatives and friends of Rukmini, called by Rukmini, came there. Defeat him because he is not an expert, they encouraged Rukmi. O king, as a king you know very well the game of dice. This is all translations of the Harivamsa. Joyfully they entered the auspicious assembly hall with gold pillars sprinkled with sandalwood water, decorated with flowers. The southern kings, desiring that Rukmi win over Balaram and defeat him, brought gems, pearls, and gold pieces by thousands. The game started, destroying their anxiety. The game was filled with commotion, frightening and destructive to the wicked. I'm going to read a little bit of Srila Sanatana Goswami's commentary. The kings were mostly from the south and were friends of Rukmi. He also quotes from the Harivamsa. Kings who were relatives and friends of Rukmi, called by Rukmi, came there. The proud kings instigated Rukmi against Balaram, who was very strong. Defeat him decisively and take away everything. As a king, you have great knowledge of dice. He has no knowledge. They gambled in the assembly. And from Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, deciding that it would be difficult to defeat Krishna, even in gambling, they told Rukmi to invite Balaram to a game of dice. So what demon in Krishna Leela does this remind us of, who didn't think you could defeat Krishna? Pralambasura. Yeah, he thought, I can't defeat Krishna, but I can defeat Balaram. So he carried Balaram away from Krishna. So I want to read from this section of Krishna book that corresponds to this. So this is Srila Prabhupada's Krishna book. In this way, when the negotiation of the marriage of Aniruddha with Rochana was complete, a big marriage party accompanied Aniruddha and started from Dwarka. They traveled until they reached Bojakata, which Rukmi had colonized after his sister had been kidnapped by Krishna. So why did Rukmi colonize Bojakata? Yes, because he had taken a vow, if I can't defeat Krishna, I won't go back home. So he wasn't defeated, so he had to have a city someplace else. This marriage party was led by the grandfather, namely Lord Krishna, accompanied by Lord Balaram, and it included Krishna's first wife, Rukmini, his son Pradyumna, Jambavati's son Samba, and many other relatives and family members. They reached the town of Bojakata, and the marriage ceremony was peacefully performed. The king of Kalinga was a friend of Rukmi's and gave him the ill advice to play chess with Balaram and thus defeat him in a bet. Among Kshatriya kings, gambling on chess was not uncommon. If someone challenged a Kshatriya to play on the chessboard, the Kshatriya could not refuse the challenge. So here, Prabhupada brings this up frequently about the different dharma for each of the varnas. So I'm not going to discuss this in depth today, but why does Krishna divide all the hundreds of thousands of ways of earning a living into 4 categories? Why does he do that? Why doesn't he just say, whatever you do to maintain yourself, do that as a service? Because there's a different dharma for each of these varnas. So depending on a person's temperament, they should do a certain kind of work that has a different system of ethics. Like a brahmana can walk away from a challenge. We know that the brahmanas would often challenge each other to philosophical debate, but you could refuse. You could say, I'm not going to debate with you, not interested. Right? Even the Vaishyas, they don't have to engage in a mercantile competition. The Shudras, they don't have to do that. You know, like we have competitions among like who can grow the biggest pumpkins and who can decorate the nicest cakes, and we have athletic competitions, but you're not obligated. If someone says, play a game of tennis with me, you can say no. But the Kshatriyas have to respond to a challenge, and the reason for this is that they are the protectors of society. So if there's some criminal element, they can't just walk away. So I think it was a couple years ago, I give this as an example in my classes on career dharma as to why a person shouldn't do work that doesn't correspond to their temperament. So we had a school shooting in America a few years ago, and the police officers and security people that were guarding the school, they didn't go into the school to save the children and teachers because they were afraid for their own lives. So that's fine if you're a Brahmana, Vaishya, or a Shudra, but it's not fine if you're a Kshatriya. If you're a Kshatriya, you have to be willing to sacrifice literally your right arm or your eyes or your life to protect others. So this idea that if there's some challenge, you can't refuse. You can't say, no, I don't think I'm going to do this. And this concept applied even to challenging sports, not just to challenge of arms. Going on in Prabhupada's reading, this is Krishna book. Shri Balaramji was not a very expert chess player, which is of course quite interesting. How can God not be expert in anything? So of course that's Leela. And this was known to the king of Kalinga. So Rukmi was advised to retaliate against the family members of Krishna by challenging Balaram to play chess. So it's quite an interesting concept of what's going on here. Think about the whole context here. Although not an expert chess player, Sri Balaramji was very enthusiastic in sporting activities. So he liked to play chess even though he wasn't very good at it. He accepted Rukmi's challenge and sat down to play. So we have this, read again, just the translations. On the joyous occasion of that marriage, O King, Queen Rukmini, Lord Balaram, Lord Krishna, and several of the Lord's sons, headed by Samba and Pradyumna, went to the city of Bojakata. After the wedding, a group of arrogant kings, headed by the king of Kalinga, told Rukmi, you should defeat Balaram at dice. He's not expert at dice, O king, but still he's quite addicted to it. Thus advised, Rukmi challenged Balaram and began a gambling match with him. So the purpose of this challenge is retaliation. It's vengeance. But think about the context. So Rukmi has some affection for his sister, which Ratna Radhika was talked about so nicely on Friday, what kind of affection this was. It was actually very selfish affection. But still he had affection for his sister. So he marries his daughter to Rukmini's son, Pradyumna, and then he's marrying his granddaughter to Pradyumna's son, Aniruddha, which is unusual in the sense that generally marriages don't occur between very close family members, though they do in the Muslim communities, but generally in the world, such close family marriages are not done. And also, it's unusual because if he was so angry at Krishna for kidnapping his sister, why would he then arrange the marriage of his daughter and granddaughter to Krishna's son and grandson, which then ties him? It's a triple tie. So, he's tied by his sister, but then he's also tied by his daughter and granddaughter, and often the ties of your children are greater than the ties of your siblings. That's often the case, because then you're going to share grandchildren and great-grandchildren with them. So you accept your daughter-in-law as a daughter, you accept your granddaughter-in-law as a granddaughter. It's a very close relationship. So he's simultaneously doing this and wanting to embarrass his wife's husband's family. This is very peculiar. This does sometimes happen even in our modern Western weddings, that there's actually some antagonism between the families that are marrying, and so sometimes a person will get up and give a speech at the wedding where they're criticizing the family that their family member is marrying into. You understand? This does sometimes happen. They'll get up and, we call it roasting. They'll roast the brothers-in-law or the cousins or the parents-in-law of the person into whom their family member is marrying. But what an odd thing to do. I would like your grandson to marry my granddaughter, but I'm going to try to publicly humiliate your family at the wedding. And not just publicly humiliate Balaram, but it's explained in the next verse how the different kings brought all this wealth to be wagered. So not only to embarrass Balaram, but also to impoverish him. And again, how odd is this? you're trying to impoverish the family into which your own granddaughter is marrying. So this is very strange. So for any of you listening, if you have married children or married grandchildren, would you do that? Would you go to the wedding and try to take all the money from the family into which your child is marrying? So a very, very strange situation. But such a situation actually is not so unusual materially that people who are friends with us with one hand stab us in the back with the other hand. It's not such an unusual situation, and we can say that Maya in general is like this. Here's some enjoyment, stab, stab, stab. So that's the general way of this world. And how could we live differently? How could we have a different way of living with this? What would our life be like if we didn't have this tendency, we didn't see the world like that? And how can we come to that higher position? So we know there are many people who pretend to be friends, or they're friends in one way and they're critical of us in another way, right? This is very common. To our face, people will say, oh, you're so wonderful, you're great, you're wonderful. And behind our back, they'll say, oh, that Urmila, she's actually like this and she's like that. And she's... It's not at all uncommon. And we also, if we're going to be honest, we also may do this. We also may be friendly to people to their face and criticize them behind their back. We may even try to hurt people who we pretend to be friends with. And in general, we're acting like this with Krishna. I think we can say that most people in the world who claim to be religious are not really serving God. They're saying, I believe in God. They're saying there's a God. The vast majority of people believe in God, but they're not living a godly life. And even people who try to live a godly life don't always do so. Am I correct? Do all of us sometimes act in ways contrary to our belief system? So this is, on the one hand, yes, Krishna, I want to serve you. Yes, Krishna, I want to serve you. No, I don't want to serve you like this. So this is also going on. So we feel pain from others' hypocrisy. We feel pain from our own hypocrisy. And we want to be able to trust people, right? It's kind of hard to go through life without trusting people. At the same time, we don't want to be naive. You're going to this wedding of your former enemy, and you want to be trusting. You want to think, well, they're giving me a place to stay. They're marrying into our family. You don't want to go there thinking, oh, what are they going to pull? And at the same time, right, we don't want to be cheated. So what are we going to do? How are we going to deal with this situation? If we can think of what would be the ideal way of being, because materialistically, either we're too trusting and we get cheated, or we become bitter and cynical and then we're not happy, right? And we have this relationship with others where we're constantly in a state of fear. Who's going to turn on me? Who's not going to be there for me? And all it takes is a little something, because we're living in this fear, all it takes is a little remark from somebody to set us off and think, I knew that person wasn't really going to be there for me. So what's the ideal state? I was thinking about the cowherd boys going into the mouth of Aghasura. And they really exemplify the ideal state of a spiritually realized person, where they're like, oh, what is this? Is it a statue? Oh, I don't know. There's some smelly breath coming from it. I think it's alive. Maybe it's a snake. Maybe it's a demon. Oh, whatever it is, we're going to have fun and Krishna will take care of us. Come on, everybody, let's go into the snake. So even though they think that they think, well, maybe something bad will happen, they know Krishna's going to be there. Saying about the gopis running in the middle of the night to see Krishna. Krishna's playing his flute, which each gopi hears as calling her individually. Actually, the gopis didn't know they were going to meet all their friends there in the forest. They thought Krishna was just calling them, and they're running in the forest, and even 500 years ago, there were tigers in the Vrindavan forest. We have that example with Raghunath Das Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami. And there were tigers, there were ferocious beasts. You're really going to run out into a forest in the middle of the night when there's tigers? I don't think so. And it's dark, and it's actually a forest. And then also you're running away from your homes, and in those days, for a woman to run out of her home in the middle of the night, her whole life could be ruined for the rest of her life. She could be completely socially ostracized, rejected by her family. So many difficulties. But still, Krishna will take care of us. Krishna will take care of us. Even thinking about this particular story, Rukmini going to this wedding. I want to speak of Krishna and Balaram, but Rukmini herself. I'm going to go to the wedding of my grandson with my brother's granddaughter, even though my brother has been at enmity with me. I'm going to go, and I'm going to trust that even if my brother pulls something, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some conversation between Rukmini and Krishna. Should we really do this? Is this really a good idea? Even Rukmini talking to Pradyumna, you married my brother's daughter. How has that worked out for you? Do you feel safe dealing with your father-in-law? Do you really want to marry your son to them? And, well, I don't know. How is that going to work out? So I'm sure there was some consideration like that. I was also thinking about Srila Prabhupada dealing with Mr. Nair in Bombay. Giriraj Swami recently published a book about this. How, we got the Juhu land at a really cheap price. Prime land. Of course, then it wasn't as prime. It hadn't developed as much. And in fact, some people were even criticizing, why do you want this land at a distance? Same situation with our Chennai temple. So the Chennai temple is out of the city, probably a 20-minute drive out of the city, out of the main part of the city. And at first people were saying, why do you want to build a gorgeous temple here? But now actually people drive there just to go to the temple, and the area has developed. That was also true to a large extent with the Krishna Balaram temple, that Raman Reti was not a developed area of Vrindavan. So they were thinking, well, the land is cheap because of the location, but also it was really cheap. And so there were definitely some red flags that Mr. Nair might be a cheater. And turned out that Mr. Nair had simultaneously sold the same property to a number of people. And Prabhupada fought for years to get that property. And Prabhupada said, had Krishna told me he was a cheater, I would not have bought it. He said, Krishna covered me, so I couldn't see that he was a cheater. So we're going to get cheated in this world. There's no question about it. But we can have this mood. Imagine if we had this mood. And you may all think of other examples. I don't know, can any of you think of any other examples? I was thinking the cowherd boys in Nagasura, the gopis running at night, right? This particular story that we're in, Prabhupada with Miss Nair. Can think of any other examples of devotees where they knew there was a chance they were going to get cheated, and still they went into it with enthusiasm? Prahlad having that faith. Yeah. Right. It's interesting with Prahlad. At first, he was only courageous in dealing with his father personally. And it was only after his father tried to kill him and failed in so many ways that he became courageous in dealing with the other students. Before that, he was silent with the other students. He didn't openly challenge anyone at school, but he was courageous with his father directly. Yes, even though it was a good chance his father would turn on him. Any other examples? Thinking about Kunti after Pandu died, when she brought her sons back to Hastinapur. She had some faith that Vidura and Bhishma would look after her. But still, I mean, she described to Krishna she felt what she was a deer surrounded by some kind of predator, can't remember, lions or jackals or something. That all these people who were seeking to do her harm, and still she stayed there. Srila Prabhupada coming to America. Yeah, that was pretty scary. Without a place to stay after a month, without any money, without any connections. And not really understanding American culture, how people might deal with him. So wouldn't it be nice to have that kind of fearlessness? What do you think? So just imagine, if we had that kind of fearlessness. Not stupidity, not naivete, not like we're just unintelligent, but with intelligence, with discrimination, still having that kind of fearlessness. How nice would our life be? That we could go into situations that we knew were possibly dangerous, but we had some service there, and we had this faith that Krishna will protect us. So how are we going to get to that point? Well, the first thing is to let go of thinking that we're a victim. We're in a world of deception because we're deceptive. It's like the reason a person is in jail with other criminals is because they are also criminal, generally speaking. It's one of the punishments of committing crime that you have to hang out with other people who committed crimes. You understand? It's one of the it's not just that you're in a cage and you can't come and go as you please and can't do as you please, but you also have to associate with people who are of a similar mentality. So we're in this world of the cheaters and the cheated because we're cheaters. We're trying to enjoy the kingdom of God without God. So that's why we're here, and therefore it's our responsibility. It's not anybody else's responsibility. It's not that we're just innocent beings that people are backstabbing us. So work on becoming a person of integrity. Work on walking our talk. Work on being in private what we are in public. Work on being a person who, like Prabhupada said, first deserve, then desire. Work on being a person who deserves to be in the spiritual world with pure devotees. Of course, even in the spiritual world, there's deceptive lila, where Krishna will say, hey, I'll meet you here at 6 o'clock, and he goes someplace else, or the gopis say to each other, your mother-in-law is coming. You have to, there's that kind of lila that's fun. It's not malicious. And then expect that we're going to be deceived and cheated no matter what we do, no matter how careful we are. We generally try to figure out, how can I enjoy this world without negative consequences? That's our general mentality of a conditioned soul. How can I eat as much as I want without getting fat or diabetes or something? Or how can I have illicit sex without disease in children and responsibility? How can I drink without getting a hangover? How can I do something wrong without having the consequences for it? And we try to understand the laws of nature. How does the world work? Right, if I can just figure out how the world works. My very good friend Rukmini, who works with me on Career Dharma, she was saying that the world isn't just a series of laws. It's run by a person. And demons try to figure out what the laws and the rules are so they can exploit them. I'll just figure out how everything works. And we watch other people and we say, that person, they had this bad thing happen to them because they made this and this and this and this and this mistake. So I'm going to make sure I don't make those mistakes. I'm going to make sure I don't make those mistakes. I make sure I get this right. But it doesn't matter. You can get everything right. You can check all the boxes. You can take all the courses, you can observe everybody, and still we're going to be deceived by others and cheated by others. It's just going to happen. I mean, unless you die in the next 5 minutes, it's going to happen. I give you an ironclad guarantee. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't be careful. It doesn't mean we're thinking, well, I'm going to close my eyes when I cross the street, and anyone who asks me for money, I'm just going to give it to them. And when I get an email from this Nigerian prince, who just wants $5,000 to give, then I'm just going to give that. It's not that we should be like that. But we should be careful as a service to Krishna, not because we think our carefulness is going to save us from dealing with others in the material world and dealing with the material laws. I should be careful with the money I have because it's Krishna's money. I should be careful with this body because it's Krishna's body. I should be careful with my relationships because Krishna wants me to honor my relationships. Not that if I check all the boxes, I'm going to be able to enjoy and control the world. It is quite a different mentality. It might show up very similarly in the external manifestation, but it shows up very differently in the psychological manifestation. If I'm trying to be careful as a controller, I'm always going to be in anxiety. And if I'm trying to be careful as a servant, I'm always going to feel a sense of freedom. And then there's this famous verse, I don't know exactly where it's from, but Prabhupada quotes it all the time, Made Krishna Rake Ke, Rake Krishna Made Ke. So we had a children's song like this. Made Krishna Rake Ke, Rake Krishna Made Ke. If Krishna wants to kill you, no one can save you. If Krishna wants to save you, no one can kill you. And that's actually the fact. You were talking about Prahlad. There's this Haridas Thakur. They beat him in 23 marketplaces. In other words, they took him through 23 different towns and were publicly beating him. And Lord Chaitanya took all of the marks on his own body. But then we have others like Jatayu, where Rama and Lakshman allowed Ravana to kill Jatayu. Abhimanyu, who was killed in the battle of Kurukshetra. And, it's explained, Arjuna says to Krishna, even though our son was killed practically in your presence, my wife Subhadra, she's not changed the color of her love for you. Sometimes Krishna allows the devotees to be killed. Sometimes Krishna allows the devotees to be cheated. I couldn't find it. I couldn't find the quote. But I remember when Prabhupada was here and we'd gotten this beautiful temple in Detroit, and Prabhupada was very concerned that we invited the local residents to the temple. And the devotees told Srila Prabhupada, well, the local kids will come and steal. And Prabhupada says, is it an offense to steal, but it is not offense to be stolen from. Now that doesn't mean that we shouldn't protect things. Again, we do have alarms and so forth. We take precaution. But at the same time, we're doing that as a service. And we ultimately depend on Krishna, which we can do by having the mood that even now we are participating in the Lord's Leela. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes about this, that even this material world is the Leela of the Lord. I mean, we can look at this story in the Bhagavatam and say, well, it's all Leela. It always irritates me when people dismiss things like that. Well, that's just all Leela. Yes, it's Leela, but it's Leela meant for our instruction. It's Leela meant for our edification. It's not just that it's a different category of existence. This whole material world is the Lord's Leela. The universe is the Lord's body. And you can say we're in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela. And we can see like that. As in Leela, there's adventure. In venture, you don't know how it's going to turn out. That's what an adventure is. I mean, there's actually no fun in anything if you know exactly how it's going to turn out. What do they call that? Spoilers. Someone's going to, read a book or watch a movie or something, and someone else has already read it. Oh, don't tell me how it ends. Don't tell me that's the thrill of it, the discovery. That's even the thrill of it for the Lord, who puts himself under Yoga Maya, so he won't know how it turns out either. And what to speak of for us? Will I be safe? Well, yes, nahanyate hanyamane sharire, you're a soul, you can't be injured or killed. Will I be safe materially? No. Whoever takes birth is going to die. So we're going to be cheated, we're going to be deceived on the material level, we're going to die, we're probably going to get sick, we're probably going to get injured. Just like I burned my hand here in the kitchen the other day. It's like, a few people ask me, what is that? It's like the natural result of cooking. If someone says, I'm going to cook, but I'm never going to get burned or cut, you say, that's not going to work. So guaranteed those things are going to happen materially, and guaranteed they won't affect us spiritually. We have nothing to do with any of that. And how Krishna arranges things externally, take that as an adventure. There's many people who are going to be nice with one hand and backstab with the other. But we have this view of the residents of the spiritual world who live with intelligence and discrimination and yet fearlessness. And we can actually cultivate that. Be the change, right? Be the person who is not deceptive. Go on Krishna's ride. And trust that everything can be fun in his protection without being naive. So, questions, comments, additions, subtractions? Yes, Christopher. Big difference between chess and dice. Prabhupada almost always refers to those games as chess. And we know that, of course, chess came from India as a sport of the royalty, but was the game they were playing exactly the chess we play today, or was it a different game? I don't know. It was some sort of strategic game on which they gambled. That's true. Dice is very quick and chess is very slow. I don't know. I don't know. Oh, the only thing we could say for certain is it was some kind of game that it couldn't have been just dice. Because if it was just dice, dice is 100% chance. And there'd be no discussion of Balaram's expertise or lack of it if it was 100% a game of chance. It must have been a game that involved some sort of strategy. Yeah, and how to roll the dice. Dice is really a game of chance, unless you're Shakuni who has weighted dice. But again, we don't know exactly what game Shakuni was playing either. We just know that he was cheating at it. So it was some sort of game that involved strategy and expertise. Yes, the only thing we can do is not be a cheater or a deceiver. And strive for that. Do our best that we ourselves are not cheaters and deceivers. Do our level best with that. And then take care as a service, not out of fear. Not out of fear, not out of trying to be a controller. But it's my service to protect the temple. It's my service to protect Krishna's money. It's my service to protect this body. That's my service. And whatever Krishna wants to happen is going to happen. Not that I can control the world or control my life. Good luck. Anybody else? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvandam Maravindadalaya Taksham Bharavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandar Agom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Pasyanti Panti Kayanti Chiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami 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 Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Vrindavan. Shri Govinda Gopinatha Madana Mohan. Jai Radhe, Jai Krishna, Jai Vrindavan. Shri Govinda Gopinath Madana Mohan. Bolo Jai Radhe, Jai Krishna, Jai Vrindavan. Shri Govinda Gopinath Madana Mohan. Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan. Shama Kunda Giri Govardhan. Kalindi Jamuna Jaya Jaya Mahabhan. Jaya Mahabhan. Bolo Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavan. Shri Govinda Gopinath Madana Mohan. Bolo Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavan. Shri Govinda Gopinath मदन मोहन केसी घाट बंसी घाट द्वादश कानन केसी जहाँ सब लीला कैलो श्री नंदन नंदन जहाँ लीला कैलो जय नंदन नंदन बोलो जय राधे जय कृष्ण जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन बोलो जय जय कृष्ण जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन श्री नंद जशोदा जय जय गोपागन श्री नंद यशोदा जय जय गोपागन श्री दामादि जय जय धेनुवस्तागन श्री दाम जय धेनुवस्ताभन बोलो जय राधे जय कृष्ण जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन बोलो जय राधे जय कृष्ण जय मन जय गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन जय वृषभानु जय कीर्तिदा सुंदरी जय जय पूर्णमसी जय अभिरा नगरी जय जय राधे जय कृष्ण जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन बोलो जय मोहन जय जय गोपेश्वर वृंदावन माय जय गोपेश्वर वृंदावन माय जय जय कृष्ण सखा बाटू द्विचराज बाटू द्विचराज बोलो जय राधे जय कृष्ण जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन बोलो जय जय कृष्ण जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन जय राम घाट जय रोहिणी नंदन जय राम तट जय रोहिणी नंदन जय जय वृंदावन वासी जटाजन जय जटाजन बोलो जय राधे जय कृष्ण जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन बोलो जय जय कृष्ण जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन जय द्विजा पत्नी जय नग कन्यागन जय द्विजा पत्नी नाग कन्यागन भक्ति तेज हर पैलो गोविंदा शरण भक्ति तेज हर पैलो गोविंदा बदन बोलो जय राधे जय कृष्ण जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन बोलो जय जय कृष्ण जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन श्री रस मंडल जय जय राधा श्याम श्री जय राधा श्याम जय जय रस लीला सर्व मनोरम जय रम बोलो जय राधे जय कृष्ण जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन बोलो जय जय कृष्ण जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन जय जय उज्जवल रसा सर्व रसा सार जय जय जल रसा सर्व रसा सार पर किया भावे जहाँ भजते प्रचार बने बदते प्रचार बोलो जय राधे जय कृष्णा जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन बोलो जय कृष्ण जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन जय श्री ज्ञान पद पद्म कोरिया सम्राट श्री जन पद पद्म कोरिया शरण दीन कृष्ण दासे कोय नम संकीर्तन संकीर्तन बोलो जय राधे जय कृष्ण जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन बोलो जय राधे जय कृष्ण जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन बोलो जय राधे जय कृष्ण जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन बोलो जय जय कृष्ण जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन जय श्री ब्रजधाम की जय. All glories to Radha and Krishna and the divine forest of Vrindavan. All glories to the three presiding deities of Vrindavan, Shri Govinda, Gopinath and Madan Mohan. All glories to Shamkun, Radhakun, Govardhan Hill and the Yamuna river Kalindi. All glories to the great forest known as Mahavan. All glories to Keshi Ghat, the Vansi Bhattacharya tree and the 12 forests of Braja. All these places the son of Nanda, Shri Krishna, performed all of his pastimes. All glories to Krishna's divine father and mother, Nanda and Yashoda. All glories to the cowherd boys headed by Shri Dama. All glories to the cows and calves of Braja. All glories to Radha, divine father and mother, Vishbhanu, and the beautiful Kritida. All glories to Purnamasi, the mother of Sandipani Muni. All glories to the young cowed maidens of Braja. All glories to Gaveshwara Shiva, who resides in Vrindavan in order to protect the holy Dham. All glories to Krishna's funny Brahmana friend Madhu Mangala. All glories to Rama Ghat, where Lord Balram performed his rasa dance. All glories to Lord Balram, the son of Rohini. All glories to all the residents of Vrindavan. All glories to the wives of the proud Vedic Brahmanas. All glories to the wives of Kaliya serpent. Though through pure devotion they all obtained the lotus feet of Lord Govinda. All glories to the place where the rasa dance of Shri Krishna was performed. All glories to Radha and Sham. All glories to the divine rasa dance, which is the most beautiful of all Lord Krishna's pastimes. All glories to the mellow of conjugal love, which is the most excellent of all rasas and is propagated in Vraja by Shri Krishna in the form of divine Parkiya Bhava. Remembering the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda's consort Shri Janva Devi, this very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna sings the Sankirtan of holy name, Shri Vishnu, Shri Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami ki jai, Vrindadham ki jai, Gaur Premanandari Bol, Chodakranam
Mahadavagni Nirvapanam Shreya Kairavya Chandrika Vitaranam Vijavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipanam Pranamrita Swaranam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapita Nihamita Smaranena Kala He tadrishita vakripa bhagavan mamapi durdaiva midrishami hajjanina nuraga trinadapi sunichena charorapi suhishuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari nadaram najanam nasundarim kavitam vajagadishakamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvareim Bhavatad Bhaktir Hoitaki Twai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Badao Kripayata Vabada Pankaja Stita Duli Sadrushim Vachintaya Nainam Gilarshu Daraya Vadanam Gad Gadrudai Gira Pulakarnishidam Vapukada Tavanamagrahane bhavishyati yugayatam namishena chakshusha pravishayatam shunayatam jagat sarvam govindam virahiname ashlishyava padamratam panastumam adarshanam marmata karotiva yatatava vidadatulam patomat prananatastu sa eva napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays as the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully